All right, let's keep moving along here. I apologize for that crying baby in the background. It's right before her nap time, and she's a little bit grumpy right now. So next, let's set up the ball deflection. So we're not actually going to have the ball use a mask to collide with the paddle. I found that creates a lot of issues and problems with rigid body 2D and our deflection code that we're going to want to implement here. If you're just having a simple paddle with no deflection, then you could simply have the ball collide with the paddle, and you'd probably want to use a capsule shaped 2D so that it's not just a box. And then on the edges here, you could deflect the ball with just the collider itself. But we want to have a little more sophisticated deflection code. So under our player here, let's start with the ball. So under the ball, let's add a script here and set up some deflections. Okay, let's have a constant up at the top, and let's call this ball speed. Or no, it's the same as base speed, actually. So our base speed is going to be 200. And a speed increase. So we're going to speed up the ball whenever it deflects. And let's do a speed increase of 10. Every time it hits off the paddle, it's going to increase by 10. And let's store a speed, and we'll initially set that to the base speed. And under here, let's do deflect off paddle. So this is going to take the paddle, and we don't need it to be actually a character body 2D. We can just set it to be a node 2D. So whenever we enter the paddle, we want to deflect. So let's do an offset. This is going to be actually the Y offset. So this is going to be a float, and let's set this to the ball's global position dot Y minus the paddle's global position dot Y. And we're going to divide that by the paddle's collision shape. And actually, before we do that, we need to set up something on our player. So let's go ahead and go to player here. And let's add a new scene here. Let's add an area 2D. And under this area 2D, let's add a collision shape of its own. And this is just going to match our collision shape for our actual character body. Let's make a rectangle shape and have that line up with our paddle as well. So our ball is not actually going to deflect off of this collision shape here. It's going to be detected by the area 2D's collision shape. So under layer here, the area 2D doesn't need a layer. It's not going to be detected by anything. It's just going to be looking for collisions. So we're going to be looking for the ball. So let's set the mask here to the ball layer. So this area 2D is going to be looking for the ball. And now we can go back to our ball script. And we're going to do this. I'm going to do paddle.getNode. And since this collision shape and this collision shape are the exact same size, it doesn't actually matter which one we get. So we can just grab this first one. We don't need to grab the area 2Ds. So let's just look for the collision shape 2D on our paddle. And we're going to grab the shape.extents.y. So what this is doing here is it's going to our player, it's grabbing this collision shape 2D, it's taking a look at the shape, which is this rectangle shape 2D, and it's looking at the extents.y. Now, should this be extents dot? No, extents.y. Yeah. So extents is basically half the size. So this is going to return 48 divided by 2, or 24. And that's going to properly set up our y offset. So let's take this y offset, and we're going to clamp it. So we want to clamp the y offset between -2 and 2. So we don't want the deflection to be massive on the ends. So at a certain point, when it gets to be larger than 2 or -2, we'll just clamp it to 2. So the deflection won't be extremely dramatic on the edges compared to the center. It'll be a little softer. And whenever we deflect off the paddle, let's increase our speed. So speed equals speed increase, plus equals speed increase. So our speed will pick up. Now let's have a bar direction here. So if the ball's linear velocity dot x is less than 0, let's have direction equal to a vector 2 of 1.0 and our y offset. And we want to normalize this. Else, that means our linear velocity is greater than 0. We want direction to flip on the x-axis. So what this is doing is essentially it's seeing that our ball is moving to the left, and when we go ahead and set our direction, we want the ball to be moving to the right. And if it's not moving to the left, then we want our ball to move to the left. So finally, let's set the linear velocity of the ball equal to the direction times the speed. And that should do it for a deflection off paddle. So let's go ahead and test that out. Actually, first, before we need to test that out, we need to set up this area 2D to call that function. Let's click on the area 2D, go to the nodes here, and double click the body entered signal. So whenever the area 2D on the paddle detects the ball, we can do body.deflect off paddle. And we're going to give it our self, which is the paddle character body 2D. Okay, let's test that out. So our ball should, well, if we move a little bit, ball should deflect off the paddle. There we go. And if we move up a little bit, the ball should deflect down. There we go. And you know what? I don't like W and D for the movement on this. It feels a little wonky. Let's, for move down, let's also add S. It feels a little more natural. All right. Next, let's go ahead and set up the goals for when the ball is going to score. So here under our arena scene, let's add a couple more area 2Ds. Let's add an area 2D here. Let's call this player goal. And let's add a collision shape 2D under that. Go to the inspector and we're going to add a new rectangle shape here. This is going to be when the ball, when the opponent scores on our goal. And let's set up the collision layers and masks here. So these don't actually need to be on any layer. They're simply going to be looking for the ball. And let's Control D to duplicate this. And this is going to be the opponent's goal. And let's move that to the other side of the screen here. All right. So we have the goals set up. Let's hook up these signals now. So click on your Area 2D, go to Node, and double click on Body Entered. And we don't have a script yet, so let's create a script first. So we have a script under our arena scene. And now we can do Body Entered on the player, and we can do Body Entered on the opponent's goal. So before we can use these functions, let's set up an events signal bus. So I don't like to include signals on the individual scripts themselves. I find that it's really nice and handy to have an auto load for all of your signals. That way, no matter what the signal is, you can connect to it and you can emit it from any script in your project. If we just set up the signals on the ball, for instance, if we set up a signal here like player goal entered, then we would need to have a reference to the ball in all the scripts that we want to connect to this signal, and it can get really messy and it's not ideal. So a way around that is to have an auto load events auto load. So we're going to create a new script here. We're going to call this events. And we're going to go to project settings and go to global tab. We're going to look for that script and open it and add it to our auto load. So now we have an event auto load. And let's open that script up. And this is where we're going to hold all of our signals. So under here, we're going to have a signal for player goal entered and signal opponent goal entered. So now if we go to our arena, we can just emit those signals. So events dot player goal entered dot emit and event player goal, or sorry, opponent goal entered dot emit. So instead of having the signals on the arena and needing a reference to the arena every time we want to access this signal, it's on an events auto load, and that makes it really convenient. So what do we want to do when the player's goal is entered or the opponent's goal is entered? Let's go to our game manager here. And in here, let's connect those signals. Let's do events dot player goal entered dot connect on player goal entered. And let's do the same for the opponent. So opponent goal entered. And let's connect those up down here. do function on player goal entered. And we'll put pass there for right now. And function on opponent goal entered. And what do we want to do here? So whenever the player goal is entered, that means the opponent scored. So let's set up a couple more variables up here. Let's say player score as an int is equal to 0 and opponent score. So when the player goal is entered, opponent score plus equals 1. And then we want to do the same for on the opponent goal scored or goal entered, opponent goal entered. We want the player score to go up by 1. And then we need to reset the ball. So let's create another function in here. Let's call this reset ball. And here is where it gets a little tricky when it comes to rigid body 2Ds. We can't just simply say ball instance dot global position equals ball start position. If we did this, it's going to fight against the physics engine, and the physics engine is actually going to reset the ball to its old position. What we can do is or we can also do ball instance linear velocity is equal to the ball start velocity. So let me show you what happens if we try to do it this way. We're going to call reset ball in here and reset ball in here. So if we simply try to set the ball in the rigid body 2D's global position and linear velocity like this, it's going to fight against the physics engine, and it's actually not going to like it. So you see it goes to the center and then it resets back to its old position and shoots off the screen. So we can't actually do that, and we wouldn't want to set the velocity here. We want to set this to vector 2.0. But even if we do that, the ball is still going to fight with the physics engine. It's going to try to reset here, but the physics engine is going to pull it back over here. So the easiest way to get around that is to simply delete the ball scene from the game scene and then add it back in. That way it's not fighting against the physics engine for where it should be. So to do that, we're going to do game scene dot remove child ball instance. So we're just deleting that instance of the ball. And then we're going to do call deferred. Actually, you know what? Let's try it without call deferred first to see if it gives us an error. We're going to add the ball back to the game. And then we're going to set is game started to false. So that when we click start again, we can start the ball up with its velocity. So let's go ahead and try that. And this may be where we need set deferred here instead of call deferred here. We might need one or the other, but let's try this out and see if it's gonna give us any problems. So it did give us problems. It did reset, however, and the ball is now in the correct position, but the physics engine doesn't like that. It says you can't change the state while flushing queries, so use call deferred or set deferred. So let's try to use set deferred instead of just setting it the global position right away. We're going to wait one frame and then set the ball's position, and let's see if that fixes it. and it doesn't. So it doesn't like that either. So let's go ahead and comment this out, and then we're going to actually call this function deferred. So call deferred. I'm going to call add ball to game. And let's try that out. And does it like that? It does. So we actually don't need to set deferred here. If we just call the entire function deferred, it likes that better. So let's go ahead and, well, we have the ball resetting now. So the ball resets, we can start it again and it resets. So the ball is resetting fine. Also really quick, I find myself hitting A and S more than W and S or W and D. So let's go into project settings, input map, and for move up, let's add A in there as well. A and S feels really natural to me. I keep hitting them and nothing's happening.